Yeah, it's sad, and I don't really see many many ways out of it. Many for some of these people. I mean, if they don't have a case and that sounds credible to the CBP, then they get sent back to their country. They might, you know, get shot by one of the gangs. If they get returned to Mexico, some of these gangs have made it up to Tijuana, and they're looking for them. We've had people come into the building, you know, quite a few times, running from somebody in the street, and you know, those people in the street, you know, might have been carrying weapons, and you pretty much have to turn yourself into the friendliest bodyguard ever. But that's all I got. I haven't slept, so I apologize. But if you have any questions, I feel like I'm a lot better tonight.
Thank you for sharing.
A second mic up here. That's the one. All right. So, are there any questions in the audience? Okay. All right. That's it. Hey there.
Yeah.
Can you introduce yourself, and what is your question for Sean?
Yeah, I'm Ivan Holland, and Bedford. I had just read or listened to a report that said that the Mexican government and/or its army or security people are now disrupting the caravans that are heading up from Central America. They're pinching them off, and then they're arresting masses of them. I thought that the new government of Mexico was more interested in human rights, yet they seem to have succumbed to this idea that these are dangerous people that have to be disrupted.
What are your thoughts on that, Sean?
They've been pushing the military out into all regions of Mexico. I've heard rumors that they were going to disband the municipal police and, you know, just have this as the federales. I've witnessed many arrests over the past few weeks of migrants around the area that we're in. They put them in their paddy wagons. We've had a lot of people coming to the clinic who've been beaten by the police. It's been a lot to process. I live in the same neighborhood as I work in, which is in the Great One. I hear gunshots every other night. I don't hear sirens. That bothers me. So I wouldn't doubt it.
So if you could introduce yourself, and what's your question?
Yeah, Andy Sellis. Sean, I just read an article in The Intercept. The U.S. is building a drone base in Niger that will cost more than $280 million by 2024. The article goes on to say that these bases, these drones, are the result of the National Defense Authorization Act. It was interesting today. I shared this with a couple of people, and it's not like anybody in this room who's like woke, okay? They just sort of went, oh, wow. Is there a Starbucks near here? You know, you've been doing this for a while. How do you reach people that, you know, they just don't make the connection, they don't get it? I mean, looking at this map just scares the hell out of me. What kind of luck have you had with folks with your message?
would you, so the base in Niger, I believe is partially to watch over the Arlite uranium concession. There's, I think France gets 1/3 of its raw uranium from there, and I think they have about 90% of their power comes from nuclear. But it's also, they just don't want that getting to the wrong hands. Yeah, so I mean, the war in Iraq really destabilized not just the Middle East, but all of Africa. There's a lot of weapons that have been floating all over the place. Al-Shabaab's been spreading through there. The collapse of the Gaddafi regime did not help. He employed Tuareg fighters to secure the southern border. Now they're out of a job. Of course, the Tuareg are a disparate group of people. That's not all of them. They're originally the Silk Road traders. So I mean, they've been crossing the Sahara for thousands of years on camels, and they can't do that because of the borders. I guess to answer the second part of that question, how do you reach people? I think by not just focusing on drones, but all of the joint special, like I think it's absurd that we have a force of over 100,000 special forces that are directly, accountable to the executive. So they don't go through Congress. Congress doesn't necessarily have the need to know. That was done for expediency. That was done so that they would have less red tape. I don't think it's a good thing for democracy as a whole. The branching out into the private military contractors, I mean, it's just one more layer that makes everything very murky. My worry is that over time, and the Romans even warned against employing auxiliaries. My worry is over time that private military contractors will go off so far in their own direction that they might even be fighting us in some instances. Because if Johnson & Johnson can launch a war of for Band-Aids, or a war of paper cuts so they can sell their Band-Aids. It's kind of that's not. I don't think that's really that great. So I mean, as somebody who actually did kind of believe in what I was doing when I joined, to have private militaries, it makes me really uncomfortable.
Yeah, thank you, Cian, for your being here. You have a great message. I'm wondering, I know you're going to other communities. I have friends down the Bay Area, but I'd love to meet with you. Or do you have a list of places you're going to be?
Mostly just going back to Tijuana.
Well,
there's a lot of work to be done.
Well, you've got two messages, the one the drones and the other about the immigrants, and both of them are heartbreaking actually and scary. So I really appreciate that. And I'd like to see that message that you have get out as strongly, as forcefully as possible.
Thank you. There's a lot of hands up, so I'm going to try to go in the order that I saw them.
Thanks, Ed. Thank you for all that you've been doing. It's just quite a trip you've been on. I'm Alan Hallmark. I'm with the local chapter of Veterans for Peace. I wondered about your experience in the service. Did you do any protesting while you were there? And how did you get out with a honorable discharge and all of that? And how many years did you serve?
I served 4 years. I had 6 months left after I got back from Afghanistan. I didn't really see the point in applying for conscientious objector status at that point. I considered it when I was, before I went to Afghanistan, but you know, it's, you know, people, like you stay there for the duration, you know, people depend on you to do your job, and I felt like, you know, I was obligated to do it, and I knew that I probably wouldn't be okay with myself after that, but I did it anyways. I got drunk and I burned my uniform in my boss's grill. Like that was my first act of protest, I guess. It was flame retardant, so it took all the lighter fluid, and it still didn't burn. So I had to get a can of gasoline, and he was not happy, and I did not reimburse him. But you know, yeah.
Thank you. Sean, feel free to let me know when we're at like 2 more questions or 1 more question point, but I know there's a lot out here.
My name's Alan Whitmire, and I wanted your comment on 3 things. Video accuracy and interpretation of them, the videos, and the telephone calls that you would intercept, and the interpretation, if the interpreters actually could speak the language and understand it, its intricacies to actually get the correct message, and then Julian Assange.
So the people, yeah, as far as the video goes, one reason why it's not, you know, super clear all the time is for bandwidth limitations, and different parties see different pictures. Some have it clearer than others. As far as listening in on phone calls, you know, so there's certain drones that are equipped with MZ catchers. So they're called Gilgamesh pods, and what they do is they act as fake cell phone towers, so that your phone always looks for the strongest signal, so it automatically connect to that. It would get your phone number, and then it would be cross-referenced, you know, across, you know, the local databases. My biggest concern with people who are working in this profession, especially in the operations side, is that they don't really have a tremendous amount of experience with the cultures that they're dealing with. So, I mean, there's a lot of potential for misinterpretations. I know, like, if somebody in the audience was in the military, they would look at that as a challenge. But, I mean, I don't think it'll ever be that way. And sitting on the other side of the world in relative safety while you're doing this, I mean, it'll never be the same as being in theater, you know, actually speaking to people on the grounds. And then from the human intelligence side, one problem is that, you know, sometimes you're getting this intelligence from countries that have different interests. You might end up, you know, killing people for them. So yeah, these problems that I'm referencing are actually things that have happened in the past. It's been 10 years since I've been involved in it. A lot of things might have changed, but I highly doubt it's been, you know, anything revolutionary.
Hi, my name's Rob, and I wanted wanted to ask if you could comment on the recent Maduro assassination attempt in Venezuela, and also about how the information gets processed between the CIA and the NSA and what goes on domestically.
Okay, that second question was very broad. There's data fusion between 19 intelligence agencies. I believe it's 19. Yeah, there's been information sharing, you know, since Bush, I believe. And as far as the Maduro assassination, it's incredibly easy to strap a bomb to a drone. You know, methods of defending against it, like mostly just EMP, like you know, disabling the internal electronics through that an overpowering signal. They do have EMP guns. Are experimenting with laser turrets, but I do foresee that in the future, that happening a lot, especially since, you know, Russia has developed, I believe Kalashnikov is developing their own drone right now that would, it's basically, you know, a cruise missile that flies at a low altitude and goes about 80 miles an hour, so it evades radar. And yeah, that's not really difficult stuff to develop. But I don't know if you've heard about what happened with the London Gatwick airport, where, you know, the airport got shut down by a drone. But I think instances like these are really going to put the fire under, you know, the butts of the people who are developing it to try and create anti-drone measures. Yeah, I don't know who was orchestrating that attack, but yeah.
So, hand up over here, is it?
So Cian, the last slide that was up there had the map of the United States with some Air Force locations, I guess where this drone warfare is launched. And I noticed in Oregon looked like 2 current locations and another one is proposed or future, something like that. I'm wondering, can we get that slide? Or I wasn't able to read from here that information and would be much interested in knowing what are those locations. Okay, so if I got close up there, I might be able to read it. Here.
It's east of Portland and west of Portland. It's the blue. Future is blue. That's west of Portland.
Arlington.
It's called Arlington?
A lot of these are National Guard bases.
What?
A lot of these are National Guard bases. They're the only ones authorized to fly over the continental U.S. Yeah. National Guard's actually flying quite a few of the missions in Afghanistan and Iraq. They're not flying the missions that are in these countries that, you know, we're trying to keep more secret, like what's been going on in Yemen, what's been going on in Somalia. They're not doing that. Some of these bases are like down there in Hurlburt Field, that's the ASOC. That's the Air Force, I think, Special Operations Command. So there are like special operators on the ground who are, you know, working with teams of drones to locate people for capture, kill missions. They do capture people. I think Michael Flynn himself has said that they have more propensity to kill them. But yeah, and the other thing to consider is time zones. so work hours, so you can keep 24-hour operations going. Yeah.
Sean, my name's Wes Brain, and I have a question about the whistleblowing and about reporting, about journalism for you. I'm going to assume you haven't had repercussions at this point in time. We do know the people who whistleblow sometimes do have a hell of a time, and in fact, journalists in journalism who, you know, sometimes tell stories that maybe people think they shouldn't be telling. Sometimes they get fired, sometimes all kinds of things happen to them. A wet blanket is put on information when whistleblowers are attacked and when journalists are attacked. Comment on that. You're a damn brave man. You really, really are. And there's a big concern for our democracy if we can't get information like you're telling us today. Comment on that, please.
You're not brave, yeah, like kind of going back to his question about Julian Assange. I mean, you know, there's valid arguments that maybe he shouldn't have been meddling in, you know, the affairs of elections or what have you. But I think the capacity that he's always been working in as a publisher and an editor, I don't believe he's been doing much more, and I think he's been a damn effective one. Now, as far as like who he is personally, like I don't know the details of what happened in Sweden or whatever, but I mean, it seems like a really strange reason to extradite somebody for something so low level. But we do need to have journalists that are willing to publish the things that governments don't like, because, you know, democracy dies in darkness. You know, from a military perspective, like the whistleblowing and speaking on, you know, top secret information or divulging documents, you know, could have a lot, like the classifications of them, you know, imply that they can have, you know, broad-reaching consequences if they were ever to be released. You know, the revolution in Tunisia and across the whole Arab Spring were highly influenced by the WikiLeaks documents. You know, I don't think you can really say that WikiLeaks is 100% responsible for that, but it was a catalyst. For sure, I mean, the fact is the U.S. and European nations have had a approach towards border countries like in North Africa that are hedged around stability, not necessarily an interest in, you know, democratic processes. You know, for the past however long, because it makes it easier to work with, and you know, they don't have to negotiate with too many players, especially like let's look at Central Africa. It's very unstable. There's been huge numbers of people who've been coming up here, you know, over the past 20 years because of the instability in the DRC or you know, anywhere around there. They're seeking asylum in Europe. Libya and Algeria have been buffer states for that. You know, the people that come through there, they go and they send them back. Now it's there's a lot more people coming through. So yeah, I mean, I think what's happening to Julian Assange right now is very dangerous. And I think it's sending, you know, chills down a lot of journalists' spines who have published from leaked documents. I mean, that includes the New York Times, that includes the Washington Post, and I find that, you know, just having that chilling effect is antithetical to a free press. I think Chelsea Manning has served their time. They shouldn't have to continue to endure prison. I think Reality Winner has, I mean, she reported on Russian interference that, you know, was happening in the election. You know, whether or not, you know, they could find Donald Trump culpable or not, I don't know. But there was Russian interference. And I would think that there's probably been Russian interference for a lot longer than that. I think there's been U.S. interference in Russia. I think this is just a game that they've been playing forever. Yeah, I think if they want to curb this from happening, they probably want to improve the internal reporting mechanisms that they have, because as it stands, people like Thomas Drake, people like Bill Benny tried to go through the legal means of reporting what they thought to be huge violations of the Constitution, and you know, the government spent their resources to destroy them and neutralize them. You know, I mean, Thomas Drake was, you know, the director of automation at the NSA, and now he's working in an Apple store. So.
All right, so we got time for one, maybe two more questions, and then we're